was that we had a water jug that we had to get our water out of, and that they delivered the jug to us regularly. And I thought that was really fun, because having to have water brought in. And but I remember an earthquake that happened there in that house, and that school was damaged quite a little bit. And those are some of the earliest memories I have. I'm not like some of the family that can remember. Ruth could remember before she was born. Literally.
Coming up now, you know.
No. Ruth remembers actually the family coming from Utah when they were coming out back to live in Southern California. No, that was later. But they were going to Southern California to live, and Ruth wasn't born yet. Mother still was carrying her, but she could tell them detail after detail of what they did on that trip. And mother looked at her and she said, "You can't remember all that. You weren't even here." But she says, "I do remember." She was she was watching that body and make sure she got it as she went out to California. She was watching over it, but she could remember things before she was born. Ruth had an exceptional memory, I want you to know.
Evidently.
Evidently.
She talked to somebody.
Another memory is, I'm trying to go from house to house. We moved so many times. Was when we lived in Riverside, and we had this, you've heard me tell this story to you many times. We had this big porch that went around from the front around to the side. And this is where Jean passed away. It's when we were living in this house. And I remember going down to the corner and walking down there and seeing, is it a mausoleum or something? That Jean said she wanted to be buried there, but then one day when she saw Rose Hill, where she is buried now in Southern California, she said, "That's where I want to be buried." And Jean was only 10 when she died. And but I remember living in that house, and this was where the goat attacked me as I went out to the front onto the porch, and the goat jumped up, and I just jumped the ledge. And you have to remember, I wasn't in school yet. So I just jumped over the railing. I jumped over the railing and down and ran. And that goat followed me. I hated that goat. And that's where I found out that you could cut off chickens' heads and they could still run around. My father killed a number of chickens when they got into things, so we had chickens do a few little times. But the goat also left the house because my father said, "Well, if she's going to start chasing her, we'll have to get rid of her." The goat, not me. The neighbor down the block took her. And I also remember that after Jean's death, we had neighbors in the back over the alley. Everyone has alleys. And I don't know if they still do down in Southern California, but we have alleys down there. You go into your garage through the alley. And the neighbors were very, very good Christian people. And they really watched over Mother after Jean died. And Mother was quite ill, quite not really well. And one day Mother had asked me to mop or to dust the floor, and I did. And then I went out on the porch and shook that mop and would get rid of the dust. And within seconds, the neighbor was back over to our house. She said, "Lucille, you're not to get up and do any housework." And she said, "Well, I didn't. That was a big deal." But they were so attentive to my mother's needs that they did not want her to work at all. And a very sacred thing happened during that time. Like I said, I was around 5 because I was 5 when Jean died. And Lois asked me a number of years ago, she says, "I thought it was so strange that we didn't have help from the other side come to comfort." And I looked at her, I said, "But we did have." Because I remember seeing so many people in the room there to help us and to comfort us. And I never mentioned it to anyone because I thought everyone would have seen them. So it was a very special experience for me. But it was a happy time in many ways. but we had a good life. And then we went to lived in a house up in where there was a hill. This is the hill house. It was a steep hill, and we had a two-bedroom home, and one bedroom was downstairs, and they had like a doorbell. If we needed any attention, that they rang the doorbell, and Dad and Mother could hear it upstairs, and they could run down because there wasn't a connection in the house. You had to go outside and run down the stairs and into the room. So it was a way of communicating to them and all. And we lived in that house for some time. And the one Christmas there that I guess Ruth and I received skates. And that hill was steep. And we'd go up this hill, and there was a bend in it, and down here was the garage, and then there was more hill.